Hello, property nomads. Hope you're doing well. The government has decided to back its plan to ban gas and hydrogen ready boilers by 2025 on new build units. And this is, again, all because they are pushing this low carbon emissions and net zero stuff that literally forcing it down our throats. And there's a lot of people that are not thinking things through. Even the most sensible of people seem to be getting continually hysterical about the climate narrative that is being forced upon us. We've got an article here, so let's go through it. So the proposals that they have double backed is that heat pumps to be installed as standard part of measures to make all new homes net zero ready from 2025. Again, they're driving anything against gas, hybrid, anything that involves fossil fuels. They are basically saying, no, we're not interested in. We're going to make you use electric, whether you like it or not. And again, there's pros and cons to this. First of all, when people have something rammed down their throats continuously, people will rise up and fight against it. That is likely to happen at some point. Secondly, who is it for you in Westminster to tell us how we should live our lives? Thirdly, the electric grid really isn't up to scratch when it comes to being able to cope with this ridiculously increased demand. And fourthly, where's all your nuclear to make sure that the grid can work sufficiently? Otherwise, you're just going to be putting more electricity onto a grid that's going to need baseload energy, and that baseload energy is at the moment still going to be oil, gas, and coal, and a bit of nuclear. So it's an article where they want to be seen to be doing something and doing it for the benefit of the people. Maybe they're looking for votes for an election they won't win next year. I don't know. But it's funny to see the reaction of people to the article. So, for example, green groups, the article goes on to say that green groups claim that the government has allowed house builders to save billions of pounds by delaying the new standards that are expected to increase construction costs. Well, yes, if you're a house builder, chances are you're going to want to make things as cheap as possible. I mean, I don't advise from a property point of view buying new builds anyway, because even though the regulations are improving, people will still find a way to take a lot of shortcuts. So I wouldn't advise buying new builds anyway, not even to do as part of a buy-to-let portfolio or to even move into, to be honest. So that's point number one. Secondly, the other thing that people are jumping on the bandwagon of again is climate change. People are saying, yes, the government should do this because banning these different sorts of boilers is absolutely the right step for the climate. It's the right step for household energy bills, etc., etc. Well, yes and no, because electric continues to go up because of the way our systems work here in the UK. Electric continues to increase. Putting more pressure on the grid is not going to help, especially as the grid infrastructure isn't right, and that needs working on. That needs heavy investment. So, electricity is likely to continue to increase because, again, going back to baseload energy, if your baseload energy is oil, gas, and whatnot, look at all the things that have happened in the last couple of years. Look at all the things that are likely to happen in the years ahead. It's not going to change, or it's not very unlikely to decrease. But you're being sold this dream of your bills will go down, so you won't need the heating on as much. But if your house builders botched the building in the first place, things have been signed off when they shouldn't have been signed off, and you're putting more pressure on the grid. Again, you're being forced this false narrative. You're being fed this false narrative. It's not good. They do argue, and again, the same people from the MCS Foundation argue and say that allowing fossil fuels and hydrogen heating would have locked in high bills and locked in high carbon emissions for a generation. Well, hang on a minute. The bills can go away because at the moment gas is cheaper than electric. So, hey ho, people want to have bills as cheap as possible. So that's number one. And number two, again, you're being force-fed this climate crisis narrative, and some people just won't care about having high carbon emissions for a generation. They don't really care. and let them be that. It's fine. That's no issue for me. It shouldn't be an issue for you either. It shouldn't be an issue for those people. The other point of view, someone from well, funny enough, Juliet Phillips, a senior policy advisor to the climate think tank E3G, has said the decision to ensure all new homes were built to be highly efficient is perhaps, and I quote, perhaps the most popular and common sense of climate policies. Well, it isn't, because you're saying that you're doing this for home builders, and you're saying that you're doing this to help future generations and the things that haven't actually happened yet, the things that might not even be happening. And you're saying that, yes, congratulations, you might be able to save X amount on your bills and need to avoid the need of costly retrofits in the future. Well, it's like, well, yeah, okay, hang on a minute. If you're saying here that you're forcing home builders to build homes in one way, and you must have, heat pumps and this technology and that technology, well, and you're doing it in the fact that people may or may not be able to save on their energy bills moving forward, then what do you think is going to happen to the cost of construction? What do you think is going to happen to the end price of that home? So you might say to someone, great, you can save £10 a month on your electric because you've got this, you've built a new home. Oh, but by the way, you've got to pay £50,000 more for your home because all the construction costs have gone up. Unlucky. Are people really saving? I'll let you be the judge of that. I'm not sure people are really going to be saving there. But again, it's just another nonsensical approach that this climate change, climate crisis, hypocrisy is out there, and you're being force-fed this narrative, and it's being rammed down your throat whether you like it or not. And actually, when you start taking a step back, going, hang on a minute, what's happening here? This isn't really making a lot of sense. It's all a bit of a myth what's happening here, because are you really going to actually save on your bills? Chances are you probably won't, because of grid infrastructure and so forth, and baseload energy. And well, is it worth trying to save £10 a month on your bill when you've just possibly invested or spent an extra £50,000 buying a house in the first place? Your rate of return there's not going to be very good, is it? And it's up to people like ourselves, although we're in property, it's up to people like ourselves to fight back against this narrative, because it is just nonsense, pure and utter nonsense. And that's why we're going to ask you a small favor to share this video, share this content, and subscribe to Property Nomads as well, because there's a lot of nonsense being fed, and we've got to stand up and put the truth on it, because at the moment you're not being fed the truth. And in articles like this that are being pushed in the mainstream media really aren't going to help. There's a lot that needs to be sorted if we're going to, meet these legally binding net zero by 2050 things. But force feeding people BS isn't going to be the way forward. So that's why we'll always continue to push back on this narrative. We hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to Property Nomads on YouTube. And that would be absolutely fantastic. And see you in the next video.